wasabi guys, gonna be more of a laid back video. Not really gonna talk about Commander that much, but more or less just my experience with Limited so far with Dominaria. It's not technically over. I believe once the set actually releases, there's gonna be a lot of draft events, so I'm gonna be going to those and I'm gonna have some fun. I'm usually better at draft than I am at pre-release or sealed in general. I don't know what it is, but just playing with a larger pool, having everyone have a much larger pool to choose from when they're building their decks, makes it a lot easier for some people to get just ridiculously powerful bombs and other people to just end up with nothing, which I feel like happened more often than not with this set, but overall I enjoyed it. I went to 2 pre-release events at my local game store, and I ended up going to both because I really like supporting my LGS. I think more people should do it. Every time I go there, it seems to be packed. They're always running out of table space. We have to find more chairs. It's actually kind of good. That's a good problem to have. It means people want to play the game. They want to go to your game store. Really sweet. Now, as far as my experience with the set goes, my record, I ended up going 3-1 on Saturday, and then on Sunday, I kind of scrubbed out and went 2-2. Like I said before, I don't always do well pre-release. I tend to do an okay job. I don't know what it is. I usually end up winning my first match pretty easily, and then match 2, I end up losing to someone who I never seen before. First time going to that game store, and it's like they just beat me up. Like 2-0, and then the following game I'll get 2-0'd or I'll 2-0 someone else. It's really weird, but I usually end up going 2-2 or 3-1. I don't know what it is, but with pre-release I'm just not that good at it. It could just be because the promos I get are absolute garbage, but I'm not going to blame it on that. But hopefully my luck changes when I go and play draft, because so far the last 2 events that I went to the same LGS for draft, I placed first. So I either went 3-0 or 4-0, because sometimes they take away a round for time, or maybe there's just not enough people. So doing really well in draft leads me to believe that I might do just as well in pre-release. Doesn't always work that way. But anyway, as far as the set goes, as far as Limited goes, I actually enjoyed it. I think there's some obvious weaknesses. Some people have seemed to get around these weaknesses and play really well with the colors anyway. But as far as Limited goes, the clear-cut favorite color of mine had to be white. It was just too well-rounded. You had too many good creatures, and it just seemed like, as far as first strike goes, there is a ton of first strike in the set, just way too much of it. And then that Quende guy, the guy that can give all your first strike creatures double strike, that was just ridiculous. I faced a guy that played 2 of them, and then 2 of the Denitha, I can't pronounce these names, they're really weird names. She's the one that has first strike, lifelink, and vigilance, but with double strike, gaining that much life can get out of hand, and usually lifelink and limited is pretty strong if you can pair it up with other good creatures. So just a really big problem there for me a lot of the time. I either played those cards or I got those cards played against me, and I ended up losing because of that. But yeah, I mean, double strike, first strike, way too dominant in this limited environment for Dominaria. But other than that, green seemed kind of like it was held back. I don't know how to explain it, but even though you did have some good creatures, like you had the ape warrior dude who could pretty much double his power, and if you kicked him, he got even bigger. You had a lot of big creatures that are really awesome, and you of course had Llanowar elves, so if you had like 2 or 3 Llanowar elves in your sealed pool, you would probably be inclined to play green, right? Well, the biggest problem with green was the lack of removal. Like, there was next to no removal or viable removal. You had like 1 fight spell, which only really worked on legendary creatures, which doesn't really help. It's not guaranteed removal then. So you have to depend on your legendary creatures being out there in order to fight. So most of the time, that card was going to be useless because you don't always have legendary creatures. And there was like 1 kill spell that really worked with flying creatures, and that was about it. So a lack of removal really hurt green, I think, in Limited. Even though you had Llanowar elves, you had just a ton of good creatures there. There's a bunch of removal in this set. So even if it isn't like instant speed, it's still going to deal with creatures. It's still going to really punish green, which is what you do to answer any sort of creature heavy deck, is just side in a bunch of removal, because they can't keep drawing into creatures forever, right? So yeah, definitely white was my absolute favorite color, but black was dominant as well. You had that 1-drop creature that if you kicked it, it got 2+1/+1 counters, so it pretty much became a 3/3 menace for 4. That one was really sweet, because turn 1 having the option of a 1/1 menace creature is still pretty good. You had some obvious removal in black. Black usually has some decent removal. But black just really kind of added to white. Very good. They complement each other. Enemy colors, you wouldn't think that, but black-white seemed to be the most common color pairing, at least from my experience. Day one, the color pairing that I went with was unfortunate. I went black-white, but I had to splash red because that's just how my pool went. Ended up playing that two-headed giant, which is the only reason why I splashed red. I didn't have enough power, and I needed that in creature form, so why not play this creature? I thought he'd be pretty decent and limited. He did okay. Went 3-1 that day. Overall, the game I lost, there was really no way of me coming back anyway. So the following day, though, the day I went 2-2, I ended up playing blue-black, which I really underestimated the fact that white would be just overpowering, because even though I had plenty of removal in both blue and black, it just never really seemed to matter, because white had enough aggro, it had enough control late game to where it could just overpower whatever deck it was going up against. In my blue-black deck, even though I had some decent cards, I had a couple good sagas within the colors, I had a lot of decent removal too. I had the skull that can sack itself, give a creature -5/-5 until end of turn. But hey, sometimes it's not your day, sometimes it's not your time to shine. So that anyways was my experience with Dominaria pre-release. I'm sorry I don't have any deck lists to show you. I might one day take a camera to pre-release and then maybe film myself putting a deck together, but that's at least going to take time until I get a actual functioning camera that is high definition, that is capable of picking up decent audio. So I'll have to wait till that moment sometime in the near future. But just telling you my experience so far, if you haven't played Limited yet, this isn't going to be advice relevant to pre-release because most pre-releases are over now, I'm assuming. This is more or less just going to be advice for draft weekend. So if you want to go there and you want to take some of this advice, apply it to draft, I think that would be pretty cool. White is definitely strong. So if you have to draft to strength, white has pretty much everything. It has good flyers, it has good keywords, has good bombs, has good removal, and the absolute worst color to probably stay away from would probably be red, because you have those creatures that synergize with wizards, you have creatures that synergize with instants and sorceries, and then you have that Goblin War Chief guy, or whatever his name is. He's a 2/2 haste for 3 that really doesn't do anything in the set because there's like no other goblins other than Squee, which who really cares? So red was next to useless. You had some good burn spells, but that was about it. That might be worth a splash if you have enough of them, but overall I would not draft to play red because red is just unreliable in the set. Other color combinations that I would be happy with, obviously blue-white seems to be strong. Set is set. If you're going with evasion, going with blue-white flyers, that seems to be a good strategy most of the time. Obviously white-black, very strong as I mentioned before. You do have those two knights that have hexproof from the other colors, so they could become 3/2s, first strikers for just 2 mana, which is pretty strong. There's a lot of first strike in the set. There's a lot of good lifelink that you can take advantage of. And also you could just go with white-green. That's also pretty strong. That seems to be what's going to win. And the only decks that I think are capable of slowing down those aggressive decks are not even control, but just ones that draft to their bombs and late game are capable of just stabilizing, which is very difficult to do in this set. I don't think it's that easy. But if you do get outpaced earlier on in the game, it is very difficult to come back. So if you can stabilize, you should be good, but it seems to be a challenge. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you took some advice for draft weekend. I'll definitely have to get a camera or sometime and then film myself drafting or film myself putting together a sealed deck. But anyway, you guys have a wonderful day. Void here signing off. See you all next video.